the one story that my father told me. When I was a kid, I had a temper that was unbelievable. It seemed like on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, I was coming home with reports of being in fights at school or at church or somewhere. I just had a bad temper. So I was not a problem solver. Now I'm a bit more of a problem solver. But when I was a kid, my father, he had to chastise me because I was always fighting. So after reoccurring episodes of being in fights, even fighting with my sisters, fighting at school, like I said, fighting at the playground, at church, wherever, my father said, you know, son, I'm tired of having to chastise you. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. I don't enjoy it any more than you enjoy it. But I have to tell you a story as to why I chastise you. It's my responsibility, he said. It's my responsibility to make sure that you don't grow up with a bad temper, that you learn how to control yourself, to make better choices. He said, there was once this kid that was always fighting, like you, always fighting. Anything came up, he would fight. And he grew up. In middle school, he was still a fighter. High school, he got better at fighting. Anything went down, he was nearly a bully. He was ready to, only way he solved problems was with these two right here. So what happened was, his mother, his father, they never stopped him. He grew up, teenager, 20 years old, 25, he moved away. He was living maybe a couple towns over. This was back in the old days. And one day, his parents got a letter. Mom opens the letter and it says, come to the town square of the next town, whatever the name of the town was. Come over to this town and there's going to be a meeting at high noon. And so she went on that day, and to her surprise, the gallows were set up, and who was there to be hung but her own son, standing there with the noose around his neck. And she arrived just in time for him to offer his last words. And the town sheriff said, son, you got anything you want to say, any last words? See, what had happened was the fighting never stopped. And the son was in a big bar brawl, and he beat somebody to a pulp, and he killed somebody with his own hands. And he killed a person, and the only recourse of action that they had at that time was to hang the murderer. So they were hanging him, and as the sheriff stood there and he said, son, you got any last words? And he said, yeah, I want to know if my mother's here. I want to see my mother one last time. And so the sheriff, he called out to the crowd. He said, does anybody know this young man's mama? Is she here? And she came toward the front, walking a little bit slower than she used to. She came toward the front and tears were streaming down her face. She couldn't believe her son was about to lose his life. And she went up on the gallows to give him a kiss one last time. And when she went to kiss him on his cheek, he turned and bit her lip hard, and it was bleeding. And she just stood there shaking in disbelief. And still with that same cold look, he looked at his mother and he said, Mama, my last fight, my last confrontation is with you, because you never stopped me. You never taught me any other way to handle my anger. You just let me go. You let me fly off the hook. You let me fight when I wanted to fight. And so this is how we will end our story, because you never stopped me. She had nothing to say. She just walked off the gallows. She couldn't even turn to face him, even that one last time. And so that was the last time that I can remember. As far as I can remember, I might have got chastised for other things. But I think that was the last time that my father had to chastise me about my bad temper.